He's been an inspiration for me in a variety of different ways. We're rolling? Okay, good. I hope so. I kind of feel bad. I mean, it's like,
lately I've been losing sleep, dreaming about the things we could be. But baby, I've been praying hard. Said no more counting dollars, we'll be counting stars. Yeah, we'll be counting stars.
This real quickly and just get right to it. So can you guys hear me loud and clear? Good? All right. First of all, I want to thank you guys for showing up. I really do. I'm very, very thankful for you guys coming, especially with the weather and the rain and all of that. I think sometimes that could be just a Debbie Downer, so to speak. The next thing I want to do is, you're probably wondering, like Gabe said, you're probably wondering who this crazy guy is that's over here just dancing and jumping and doing all that stuff. So let me just tell you just a little bit about myself. This is definitely BSides Nashville, but I'm from St. Louis. And my name is Ladi Adefala, and I work at FortiGuard Labs. FortiGuard Labs is the threat intelligence kind of research arm of Fortinet, if you don't know about that, which is not particularly important. But I do threat research, I do threat analysis currently, but I also serve as an adjunct faculty member at Webster University, where I teach a couple of cybersecurity level courses. I'm teaching a penetration testing course right now. Man, it's a lot of fun. You guys could probably relate to that. I love that song we opened up with, though. I really do. I love that song because it reminds us to be thankful, to count our stars, to count our blessings. But I also love it because it reminds us to dream. It reminds us to dream about all that we could be. But then I ask myself the question, what happens when we dream, but circumstances sometimes beyond our control, forces us to stop having that dream? They're trying to keep us from having that particular dream. I don't know about you guys. When I was a kid, though, the only thing I ever dreamt about was having success. I dreamt about having success every day. Success in life, success at work, success in activity, success in everything. Probably more like most people here. Dreamt about success all the time. But then again, I asked myself the question. It's great when you dream about success, making an impact. How you define success is very, very important. But ultimately, what happens when you run into circumstances that try to prevent you from having that success? And our sense of why, can our sense of purpose in trying to make a difference, can that actually help us during those times when we're going through in life? But the other question is, can our sense of why and significance, the things that we do and why we do them, can that actually help us overcome some of the questions that we have? I believe knowing our why can be very, very powerful. I believe it can be powerful not just for individuals, but for organizations as well. Because when you run into issues, when you experience failure, I believe that sense of why can actually help us. And what I want to do today is I want to remind us all, I want to remind us as a community, as individuals, as organizations, and businesses, of the power of knowing our why. I'm going to show a short clip that I believe will capture this right now.
To a career in comedy, or people will, no matter what the profession is, I'm sure Pastor Craig gets people who walks up to him on a regular basis and say, hey, what can I do to become a pastor? People are always asking, what can I do? The key isn't what you do. The key is why. People always want to know their what, but the truth is all you have to know is your why. When you know your why, you have more options as to what you do. An example is this. I am actually called to my why is to comedically inspire people to walk in purpose. My what looks like stand-up comedy. It looks like movies. It looks like being on late night TV, having my own TV show. I have a lot of options for what, but my why never changes. And when you understand clearly, when you understand your why, your what has more impact. I have an example. One of my whats that I'm currently doing is I have a web series out called Michael Jr. Break Time. It's on YouTube. We throw them out on Wednesdays. And basically what break time is, it's one of my live stand-up comedy performances. Whenever I'm doing a concert anywhere in the country, in the middle of my show, I will stop doing what I'm doing and just talk to audience members. And comedy just kind of happens. Well, we're in Winston-Salem. I'm about to show you a clip. We're in Winston-Salem, and this guy, I talked to him, and he said he's a teacher. And it's break time, we're sitting down. He said he was a teacher, and he teaches music. And I was like, well, can you sing? And check out what happens. So you're a musical director. Cool.
Yes, sir.
All right, so let me get a couple bars of like Amazing Grace. Can you do the first part of that? Go ahead.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me.
Wow. That bro could sing. You know what I'm saying? All right. Now, what you give me the version is if your uncle just got out of jail, you got shot in the back when you was a kid. I'm just saying, let me see the hood version real quick, if you know which version I'm talking about. Just see if that exists. Let me see what you got.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me.
So the first time I asked him to sing, he knew what he was doing. The second time I asked him to sing, he knew why he was doing it. When you understand your why, your what has more impact because you are walking in or towards your purpose. The key is to understand the why. So now I'm doing.
So like I said, like that video kind of showed and demonstrate, knowing our why can be very powerful and it can have significant impact. But I'll keep going back to this question. What happens when you do know your why and you start having impact and you start having success, but then you encounter failures or circumstances that try to keep you from doing that? What happens when you start having questions, when you run into circumstances and adversity? What I'd want to do now is I want to share 3 stories with you guys that will help us understand, that will give us some perspective on how our why can help us through these very challenging times. So the first story I'm going to share with you guys is a story about a young man had some success. He was able to launch a book, and during his book signing, he was looking down, and somebody walked over to him and said, "Are you Mr. So-and-so?" And he said, "Yes, I am," while he was looking down and signing. And the next thing he felt was something beating on his chest. That person had actually stabbed him in the heart. He was rushed to the hospital. And the doctor said that the blade had narrowly missed his main artery of the heart. That if that artery had been punctured, he would have drowned in his own blood and he would have died. That is a very challenging, extremely challenging situation. But I believe that his sense of why was able to give him strength to continue to have the impact, not just then and there, but also in many years to come. I'm going to move real quickly to story number 2. Story number 2 is about another man that had experienced some success in business this time. And this man had taken over a business. It was an all services business, and he was able to make a difference, hiring 71 employees that were actually making money. And during the course of that, here comes the failure. The price of crude oil took a nosedive. Some of you may relate to that. And then, of course, what did he have to do? They went from making money to making $0 in 1 month. 1 month. They went from making money to $0. He had to lay off 71 employees. Imagine what happens to the families when that happened. But what's even more in this case is because he had personally guaranteed some of the loans for the company, he was now in debt for $1 million. Again, put yourself in his shoes, $1 million in debt. And he had angry debt collectors calling him. Again, I ask myself, and we should all ask ourselves, can our sense of purpose and our sense of why, can it get us through these types of challenging times? The third story, remember I said I'm going to share 3 stories with you that I believe will give us some perspective on this. The third story is my story. This is my story. And like the other 2 stories, I had actually had some success. I was very thankful. I'd gotten a job. It was with a systems integrator. We're doing some security, but we weren't doing a whole lot of security back then. And this has been a long time. Just to give you a perspective of how long ago this was, you want to know how we used to detect DDoS attacks, distributed denial of service attacks back then? We used to use access control lists. That's how we used to detect DDoS attacks back in the day. So it's been over 10 years ago. But I experienced some success. And then what happened was we were trying to get, me and a bunch of other folks, we're trying to get the organization to invest in cybersecurity. Some of you may relate to that, trying to get organizations to invest in cybersecurity before cybersecurity was a thing. This was long before cybersecurity was a thing. Finally, after about 7 years of doing this, the organization comes and says, hey, Ladi, you've been talking about this, you want to invest in. We are actually ready to go invest in cybersecurity. Let's go double down on security. Why don't you go hire a team of people so that we can actually double down on cybersecurity and we can help customers and clients with their cybersecurity needs. So what did I do? Like anybody else, I'm like, yeah, it's awesome. Let's go hire people. So this is all still success. So keep this in mind, right? You have success and then you're running into circumstances. So what do I do? After I had about 8 people, around 8 people by then. I was about to hire the 9th person, and he was a very seasoned individual, very credentialed person. And when I was bringing him on, the same executive teams that said, hey, go hire people, they came to me, they said, hey, Ladi, you know what? That guy you're thinking about hiring, you know what we want? We want him to take over your role, and we want you to report to him. I'll say that again. I was going to hire a guy, right? And then the executive comes and says, hey, yeah, why don't you switch roles, and now I want you to report to him. And I'm like, I was being demoted, but it felt like I was being fired. And I was still within the organization, though. When that happens, it can make you doubt. It can definitely make you doubt yourself and everything else that you actually ever believed that you were doing to make an impact. So what did I do, though? Okay, yeah. So I said, all right, trust me, it wasn't easy. I wasn't sleeping. There was a whole lot of things going on. But I said, okay, I'll do it. And I did that for a while. I reported to him. But think about the implications. The new team that I hired, how would they feel? Imagine what was going on with customers that we were talking to. How would they feel? But I did it. And for about a few months, I did that. And it's a humbling experience, too. And I'm very, very, very thankful that that happened. So thankful. Because when I did that, I figured out that, this wasn't going to work. So what did I do? I said I was going to step away from security altogether. I'd been doing security by then for almost 13, 15 years. I was going to step away from security. They said, okay, if you're going to step away from security, that's fine. We'll give you some special projects thing. Anytime they give you a special projects role in an organization, your impact is just kind of diminished. It's just kind of like they put you out there. But here's where things start to get even more interesting. So now I'm in a special projects role. The new person's hiring. They're doing the cybersecurity thing. But now I start to question everything. Where's my sense of purpose? I want to make a difference. I want to do something that actually means something. And that's when I started praying a lot. Man, I prayed a lot. But then I started reading a lot because I wanted to fix it. I'm like, what did I do wrong? And I did a lot of soul searching. And finally, I came across this book while I was reading. Came across the Steve Jobs bio. If you haven't read it, I strongly encourage you to read the bio. I came across this. Most of us know the story. At a high level, most of us know the story. Steve Jobs actually founded Apple, and then he was fired from his own company. And when I read that, I'm like, you know what? My little event, if you want to call it that, was tiny in comparison to what Steve Jobs had to do. And oh, by the way, he actually went on to start a new company called Next, and Next developed the XNU, Next Operating System, which, by the way, is a foundational element now of a majority of the iOS and Apple products today. And in his case, which of course he came back and was able to transform Apple, but in his case, think about it. He had some success, he went through failure similar to mine, but I believe, again, his sense of purpose, his sense of why, actually gave him the strength to come back to say, you know what, we want to challenge the status quo. For me, that was encouraging. That was so encouraging because I was in the dumps, man. I was doing soul searching, I doubted everything. I was in the dumps. So as I kept doing that, I had some encouragement. But the other thing, and one of the reasons this matters to you and everybody here, is I also had a ton of people that were encouraging me during that time. They were like, man, okay, it's okay, what do you want to do? A lot of encouragement, and similar to what Lauren said, it's very, very helpful for us to encourage each other as a community. Sometimes just saying an encouraging word, you don't know what the person is going through. It makes a world of difference. And there were people that did that to me while I was going through, I was in kind of like my wilderness of hurt and pain. But after that, I got some encouragement from, Steve Jobs. Okay, maybe there's hope. Maybe there's hope. And then I came across this TED Talk by Simon Sinek. If you haven't watched the TED Talk from Simon Sinek, how many of you have actually watched that TED Talk? If you guys, man, oh man, oh man, it will light you up. And that's when I got lit up in trying to find my why, trying to clearly understand why. Why was I doing the things that I was doing, and why do we do what we do? And in that whole process, here's what I discovered. And that's what I want to share with you guys today. I want to share that with you guys. I found out the 3 things that I wasn't doing, which I should have been doing. And I think we all probably either do that today, but this is a good reminder. Even if we do, let's remind ourselves of why we do these things. So here are the 3 things. I'm going to walk you guys through it. So there's awareness. I'll explain what that means in a minute. There's the other stuff is related to gifts and talents, which, another thing I'll talk about. And then a cause, one that's bigger and greater than ourselves is the other thing. So let's talk about awareness real quickly. So what do I mean by awareness? All the while I was trying, when they said invest, go hire people, I was so focused on doing the work, I forgot why we were doing the work to begin with. And the reason we were doing the work to begin with was because there was a need. People had a need out there for cybersecurity solutions. And we were trying to meet that need. It wasn't about the team or all of that. The team was just a how of accomplishing that goal. I wasn't being aware. I wasn't keeping the why top of mind. And some of you, again, may relate to that. How many of you guys have actually begun a project and you focus on just implementing the project? Maybe in the beginning of a project, you started out and you know the why, you know the reason you're doing it. But then 6 months down the road, you're like, why are we even doing this? It's like, oh, and then you have to go back. I wasn't doing that. The other thing that's related to awareness, just to capture this illustration, some of you may have seen this, the awareness test videos that are out there. There's a bunch of them. If you haven't seen the moonwalking bear video, just close your eyes for about, 5 minutes, because I'm just going to run it real quickly. But the first time I saw this particular video... And
this is an awareness test.
We don't need the audio. But the first time I actually saw this video... How many of you have seen this? Show of hands. Okay, so you'll know what I'm talking about. The first time I saw the video, I was so focused on the team passing the ball, I completely missed the moonwalking bear. I mean, there's a guy doing moonwalking in there, and I'm like, really? I completely missed it. That's what I was doing when I was going through this whole, let's go hire security people and team. I was so focused on that. And I think for us, we always have to keep the why. We always have to keep that top of mind. The next one is about gifts. And I believe everyone in this room and everyone has a gift. That's what I believe. I really believe it may be anything. It may be eating hot dogs. It may be, I don't know what it is. But everyone has a gift. It's like the whole Oprah thing, right? You have a gift. You have a gift. You have a gift. I really do believe that. But for me, when I was going through my wilderness of, soul searching, so to speak, I had completely ignored my gift. So what I'd like to do again here, I want to remind us, when you have a gift, let's spend the time to develop that gift. You can't just be like, oh, I'm a talented person, I know how to do all this stuff, and blah, 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 and just let it go to waste. You have to work at it. You have to develop that gift. And the gift I actually had ignored, at least I think I have a gift around that, that's what people have told me, was the gift of teaching. And why are we here? It's all about education, which is why I love the opportunity to share this story. I developed the gift of teaching, which is why I now teach at Webster University. That's one of the things I kind of came back to during this overall process. The gift of teaching is powerful because, on my website I say there are teachers, right? And then there are those who teach. Those who teach inspire. Those who teach actually inspire us. But the other thing that I discovered that was related to gifts and talents, which is that's another good one, is that we should also spend time looking for the gifts in other people. We should also try to help people discover their own gifts and their own talents and what they can do to make a difference and have a significant contribution to the world. I truly believe that. Again, was I doing this while I was kind of heads down trying to hire a team? I wasn't. Truth be told, I wasn't. Maybe I did a little bit of it, but I really wasn't doing that. And that's another appeal. That's another plea. Let's try to encourage each other. If you see somebody today like, hey, you're really good at that, let's encourage each other in the gifts that you believe that other person has. Because, man, Gabe told me a story. Gabe's a great guy. While we were preparing for this, so Gabe told me a story about he was at work, I think it's been several years. He was managing a contractor while he was still in the service, in the military. And he was managing this contractor. And the contractor, it was a back-end office kind of role, and that person did not excel. That's a better way of saying it. That person did not excel at his role. But over time, that person was moved out. So Gabe is telling me this story. I'm like, okay, well, all right, maybe it was something that they did. Okay, you would think. But 2 or so years after, Gabe's boss comes over and says, hey, Gabe, Mike, the guy that, we're thinking of hiring him back. Do you want him back? And what would you do if you had a team member that wasn't excelling at his work, he moved out, and then you have the opportunity to rehire him? What would you do? I would have probably said, no, I'm not, not. But you know what Gabe did? He said, yeah, he was a good guy. We'll take him on. But here's where it gets interesting when you encourage other people and you discover their gifts. Here's where it gets really interesting. So they brought him back. All right, so Mike's doing his old back-end office thing, is kind of doing it. And then there was a need. There was a need to go do outside testing at other agencies So they said, well, let's, Gabe kind of said, well, let's give Mike a shot. Let's see what he does with that. And boy, oh boy, oh boy. Once he started testing, he excelled just incredibly. Everyone was like, Mike is awesome. Don't send anybody else here to do our testing. Make sure it's Mike. So he excelled beyond. He's actually managing a whole team of people now doing outside testing in the same role. So that shows you just one of those where if you could just kind of look and say, maybe this person has a gift around this, let's try it out. Because that was a big risk that Gabe and his boss actually took. Imagine if he didn't work out again. Then you got to move him out again, and everyone's thinking blah, blah, blah. So I think that's a very important thing. Let's find the talent in other people. I think it's so important. But was I doing that in my wilderness of joy? No, I wasn't. Speaking of talent shows, finding the talents of other people, actually. Talent shows are one of those things I enjoy. Anybody else like talent shows? Anybody? Come on, you guys. I mean, really? Unbelievable. Come on. I need some encouragement here. Oh, yeah, now you're talking. So one of my favorite talent shows is America's Got Talent. And since we're in Music City, right, there's a whole music theme going on here, if you haven't picked up on that yet. There's a whole music thing going on. We're in Music City. We're going to watch a short clip. Well, I don't know if it's short, but it's a clip. I may pause it earlier just to talk about some stuff. But let me set the stage, though. Remember what we're talking about. You have some success. Then you experience failures and circumstances that try to prevent you from having the impact you want to have. Will your sense of why give you strength? Will your sense of why help you overcome some of these questions? So one thing I want you guys to do, or two things I want you to do before we watch this video. Think about it. Discovering the gifts of others and talents of others. Think about how America's Got Talent does that for people. Okay? Even though Simon Cowell can be very interesting, right? But at least they try to get the talent from other people. They try to bring it to the surface. So that's the first thing. The other thing I want you to think about is think about the contestants that have a firm understanding of their why and how that makes a difference between contestants. So let me run the clip.
Is America's Got Talent, the semifinals, and here are four singers who have all overcome a lot of tough obstacles. Can they keep the dream alive and make it to the finals? From Louisville, Kentucky, they are Lincoln Bridge.
When you're a kid, you think you're invincible. You dream big.
Possibilities was endless. The sky was the limit, like there was nothing that you couldn't do.
But growing up in the city of Louisville, you find quickly that that's not reality.
When I was 7, I was in foster care, and my mother was in prison. I was allowed weekly visits with my mother at this facility, and she brought a radio. It was a blue radio. I will never forget. She gave it to me, and that's what I would listen to. I remember just using music to escape. I have a sense of accomplishment right now. If I could talk to the 6-year-old me, I would tell him one day all of this will be in the past and you'll look back on this and it would help you. If I could tell that 6-year-old that, there would be something special. We chose the song that we're singing tonight because it's about the innocence of the child, fighting with the harsh edges of life.
Sometimes even when you're a grown man, you still have that kid in you that dreams.
To be here now, at this point in this competition, if I'm dreaming, I don't want nobody to pinch me to wake me up.
Once I was 7 years old, my mama told me, go take yourself some friends and you'll be lonely. Once I was 7 years old. I always had that dream like my daddy before me. So I started writing songs, I started writing stories. Something about that glory that always seemed to bore me. Cause only those I really love would ever really know. Once I was 20 years old, our story's been told. Before the morning sun when life was lonely. Once I was 20 years old. Whoa. his voices, they can make it major. I got my boys with me, at least those in favor. And if we don't meet before I go, I hope I see ya. Soon we'll be 30 years old. Our songs have been sold. We have traveled around the world and still we're roaming. Soon we'll be 30 years old. I'm still learning about life. My woman brought children for me, so I can sing them awesome songs and I can tell them stories. Most of my boys are with me, some are still out seeking glory, and those I had to leave behind, my brother, I'm still sorry. Soon I'll be 60 years old. My God, I hope my children come and visit once or twice a month. Soon I'll be 60 years old. Soon I'll be 60 years old. Will I think the world is cold, or will I have a lot of children who can warm me? Soon I'll be 60 years old. Whoa, yeah, yeah. Once I was 7 years old.
So when you think about it, here's a question I have for you guys. Because I'm, at some point, getting closer to 60 years old now. I'm not there yet, don't. I'm not there yet, but I'm getting close to it. And when I think about the song, when you look back on your life, you kind of say, what did I want my life to be about? What did I want it to be about? And what would I tell the 6-year-old me? Well, one of the things I'll tell the 6-year-old me is you have to know and truly understand your why and remind yourself of that. Awareness, that was one of the things I discovered, but also discovering the gifts in others, which is why really I showed this video. And I said, when I was showing this video, I said, think about two things. What the show does in trying to get the talents of real people out, that's number one, but also the difference between contestants that truly know their why. I mean, these guys, when they sang that song, here's what I believe. They weren't singing for a competition. They were singing from their heart. They had gone through, I don't even know what kind of pain they'd gone through. Anyone from Louisville, Kentucky? Any folks from Kentucky here? Nobody from, come on. I mean, you guys, I know there's Kentucky fans here. I think in some respects, they were probably, thinking about how they could encourage and inspire other people to say, if I can do it, you can too. If I could do it, you can too. So let me go back to my story, right? So I discovered awareness again, right? I'm in my wilderness of pain and hurt. I discovered gifts. We got to do some stuff around gifts. The third thing was cause. A cause is really something that's bigger and deeper and greater than ourselves. It's not about me, it's about you and the cause. And related to that, I found out that a cause isn't just knowing the purpose and doing the small or the big things, but it's truly having a heart for something. It's truly having, it's not a brain thing. And sometimes it makes us do some very crazy things, some things that are not logical. People would look at you and say, are you nuts? Before I tell you what I did that was nuts, because I did do something that was total, people said, are you out of your mind? You must be crazy to even think about doing that. I came across the story of 2 PhD grads that developed some software. You may have heard of them, you may know them, maybe the picture is on the screen. I did not know this story, so maybe if you guys did, that's great. But these guys had been, PhD students. They were probably living off of ramen noodles back then and just working and developing software. And somebody offers them close to $1 million for their software. I don't know about you guys. If I was a PhD guy developing software and somebody offered me close to $1 million, I'd be like, yep, bring it on, let's go. I'm in. These guys decided not to sell Google. They decided not to sell Google. Okay? Why? Somebody asked them that in an interview. They're like, Larry Page, Sergey, why didn't you guys help? You know what Larry Page said? He said, well, we believed in search. We believed that people out there needed to be able to search for things in an efficient manner on the internet. And the folks that offered us close to $1 million did not believe that. They're like, so, you know, I mean, he's like, the money was attractive. Don't get me wrong. We were living off of ramen noodles. We wanted the money. But what we wanted more was our cause. And I mean, so when you do things that are nuts, most of us, now it's easy to say, yeah, I wouldn't have sold Google now because we know what Google became. But back then, nobody knew what Google was. It was just a software. It was a prototype in their garage or wherever they were working on or at. And so that's nuts, right? That's really nuts. So here's what I did that was nuts. And by the way, this is where God comes in for me on this one. All right? I'm telling you, there's no way I could have done something as crazy as this. So I was working, even though I'd stepped away from security, I was working at this organization. They gave me the special projects role, right? So I'm still working, and it was still good, but I just wasn't having the impact. And then I felt a conviction in my heart that said, you know what? You got to leave that organization. By the way, this organization was the dream job, right? Dream place to work. I mean, it was just killer. It was awesome. It was killer. But I had a conviction in my heart to leave the job. But here's the kicker. Leave the job without having a job. I'll say that again. Leave the job without having, I guess many people may do this already. For me, it was so scary. And that conviction in my heart said, leave the job without having it. I'm like, what are you, sometimes you try to negotiate with God. You're like, you know, if I do this, no. He's like, no, I want you to leave. Go, leave the job. So I said, well, just to make sure I'm not crazy, I may be hearing voices in my head and all this stuff. I'm probably hearing voices in my head. Somebody's nodding, like, yeah, you probably are. But that's okay. That's okay. I said, just show me a sign, right? Just show me something. Give me a sign. Let me know I'm not crazy. He's like, okay, what sign? I'm like, okay, well, we usually have a leadership meeting on Mondays. Like, okay, during the leadership meeting, if my bosses at the time ask me to go to lunch, I'll take that as a sign. And when I was doing this, I didn't know the next day was Monday. Next day was Monday, leadership meeting time. So I go into the meeting, and the only thing I could think about, right? So they're having a meeting. The only thing I could think about, are they going to ask me to lunch? Are they going to ask me to lunch? Are they going to ask me to lunch? That's all I could think about. Because I didn't have a job, and I was like, what am I going to do? I don't know what's going on in my head right now. Nuts defies logic. 5 minutes before the meeting ends, my boss is like, hey, Ladi, you want to go to lunch? And the reason I picked that as a sign, by the way, that hardly ever happens because Mondays were usually so busy. I just knew those guys would be back to back to back with meetings. They're like, yeah, how about we go to lunch? I almost peed in my pants. It was that bad. I'm like, holy crap, what the heck did I just sign up for? So as we were about to go at the restaurant, I still remember the restaurant. It was Bandanas in St. Louis. So it was good old barbecue. Before we sat down, I told them, like, hey, guys, I got something I got to tell you. Because I knew, again, this is nuts, right? I just knew if I didn't do it then, it wouldn't happen. I just knew. I was like, if I sit down and I just, boom. They're like, really? You want to? I'm like, yeah. And just, of course, I didn't tell them I was hearing voices. I mean, who's going to believe that, right? No one's going to believe that, hearing voices. What are you talking about? They're like, oh, really? Oh, the executive team is going to be really concerned and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, So after all of that, there was about 2 weeks of them trying to keep me and trying to give me something. But, dude, at that point, I was just like, here's my cause. I had stepped away from security by this time for about a year. And in security, in technology, you step away from like 2 months, you feel like you're in the dark ages. I mean, so I was like, oh, geez, right? So 2 weeks in, after the negotiation, they said, okay, we'll accept your resignation. We'll let you go. And man, oh man, I kid you not, guys. I kid you not. I'm not making this stuff up. Kid you not. As soon as I turned in that resignation, the official thing on Friday, there was just a peace in my heart like I could not describe. It was unbelievable. I hadn't slept in I had trouble sleeping this whole time when I got demoted and fired. Some of you may relate to this. I don't know what it is. But, dude, when I got that, I was like, oh, so this was me. I had no job. I had all kinds of bills to pay, but man, I was like just living the dream. It was so peaceful. But here's where, again, I go back to the people that encouraged me during my wilderness of journey, right? And that's people like you. Many of them I met at BSides conferences or security conferences all across the world. They encouraged me then while I was going through that, but as soon as they heard that I had actually left and became a free agent, that's what they called it. Man, oh man. So I dropped it on Friday. Monday, my phone was going off the hook. People were just calling, hey, Ladi, we hear you're a free agent now. How about you come there? Offer here, offer there. It was unbelievable. Incredible encouragement from, just not the community, but from friends, from people that truly believed in what I believed, from people that truly knew the why. Man. So I'll tell you this. I tell that story a lot now to a lot of people, and people are like, are you serious? I'm like, yeah. And during that time, not only was I able to start my own business, which was a little bit different, a consulting business, I focused on my gifts of teaching. So I teach a lot now at Webster University. But then I rediscovered a cause that is greater than myself. A cause that really focuses on encouraging and inspiring other people. Because I felt what that feels like. I felt what that feels like on the backside. When you're down in the dumps and somebody tries to inspire and encourage you, man, oh man, can it make a difference. So I felt that. So that was my cause. And again, I come back to something here that I think is interesting. When we have some success, like my story and a couple of other stories I've shared with you, and then you encounter just obstacles, circumstances most oftentimes beyond your control or beyond our control. And then, you wonder if your sense of purpose, meaning, making a difference, if that will get you through it. Man, I think it's more powerful to even get us beyond that. It drives impact. The power of a why drives impact. We saw that in a couple of movies. You have a lot of options. I had all kinds of options when that happened to me. Did I just want to do research? Did I want to do threat intel? Did I want to be a chief information security officer? I mean, they were just calling with all kinds of options. I'm like, oh, it's way too much. It's way too much, guys. I can't handle this. And for me, that gave me a new cause to try to inspire and encourage other people. Now, here's what gets more interesting. After that, remember I said there were 3 stories. I started out with story number 1, story number 2. The third story was my story. What happened to story number 2? The man that had the business that failed. Okay? What happened to him? Well, if you remember his story, he started the business, oil services business. The price of crude oil tanked. Debt collectors were on his tail. He was in debt for $1 million, right? So everyone was kind of calling him, trying to... You know what he did? He started a new business. You know what his business was? It was a debt collection business. It was a debt collection business. And the debt collection business or the debt collection industry, some of us know what this feels like when you've got people calling you and trying to say, hey, pay your credit card debt, pay your credit card debt. They try to hound you and they try to just go at you. The company he founded, totally different mindset. They treated the people that owe them money as customers. They treated them with respect. They started helping them to find jobs. They would do mock interviews with them. They would try to, if there was anything they needed, they would try to satisfy that need. And here's what's even more interesting. Oh, this is such a good story. Because after that, when he went going with the company trying to serve those customers, quote unquote, the people that owed them money, they would also try to actually give them any other kind of assistance that they needed. They wanted a tree cut at their house because they figured the reason these guys, they're not in the right frame of mind, and the reason they're not paying us is because they don't have the money. It just kind of makes sense, which goes against everything else in the industry. If you're wondering if this company ever made money, This company made double digits. It was the world's largest debt collection agency, most successful ever. Ever. That Bill Bartman was the CEO that actually had this. It was unbelievable. Unbelievable with this particular story. Of course, he had a couple of what I would say misfortunes after that. That's where it gets even crazier, because this particular business, again, a circumstance beyond his control, plummeted it. It went down the tubes. He went from being a billionaire and then went back again. But this time, when he came back, and he did come back, when he came back, instead of starting another kind of new business, he was centered on his why. He went back to that debt collection business, and it still lives on today, even after his death. So that was story number 2. Story number 3. Story number 3. Before I show you this final one, I want to set the stage for story number 3. Story number 3, a man, young man, had some success, published a book. In his books, right, signing, he gets stabbed, rushed to the hospital, almost died. That was the story. And I believe that his sense of why was able to give him strength to continue to make that difference. When you watch this next video, here's what I want to beg you to do. I implore you to please watch this with 2 things in mind. First, yes, how his why helped him and gave him strength to make a difference. That's the first thing. But please do not miss the encouraging or the encouragement of a young girl that helped him renew his strength. I'll play the video.
And while sitting there autographing books, a demented black woman came up. The only question I heard from her was, "Are you Martin Luther King?" And I was looking down writing, and I said yes. The next minute I felt something beating on my chest. Before I knew it, I had been stabbed by this demented woman. I was rushed to Harlem Hospital. It was a dark Saturday afternoon. That blade had gone through, and the x-rays revealed that the tip of the blade was on the edge of my aorta, the main artery. And once that's punctured, you're drowned in your own blood. That's the end of you. It came out in the New York Times the next morning that if I had merely sneezed, I would have died. Well, about 4 days later, they allowed me, after the operation, after my chest had been opened and the blade had been taken out, to move around in the wheelchair in the hospital. They allowed me to read some of the mail that came in, and from all over the states and the world, kind letters came in. I read a few, but one of them I will never forget. I had received one from the president and the vice president. I've forgotten what those telegrams said. I'd received a visit and a letter from the governor of New York, but I've forgotten what that letter said. But there was another letter that came from a little girl, a young girl, who was a student at the White Plains High School. And I looked at that letter, and I'll never forget it. It said simply, "Dear Dr. King, I am a 9th grade student at the White Plains High School." She said, "While it should not matter, I would like to mention that I'm a white girl. I read in the paper of your misfortune and of your suffering. And I read that if you had sneezed, you would have died. I'm simply writing you to say that I'm so happy that you didn't sneeze. And I want to say tonight, that I too am happy that I didn't sneeze, because if I had sneezed, I wouldn't have been around here in 1960 when students all over the South started sitting in at lunch counters. And I knew that as they were sitting in, they were really standing up for the best in the American dream and taking the whole nation back to those great wells of democracy which were dug deep by the founding fathers in the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. If I had sneezed, I wouldn't have been in Memphis to see a community rally around those brothers and sisters who are suffering. I'm so happy that I didn't sneeze. And they were telling me, we've got some difficult days ahead. But it really doesn't matter with me now, because I've been to the mountaintop. I don't mind. Like anybody, I would like to live a long life. Longevity has its place. But I'm not concerned about that now. I just want to do God's will. And He's allowed me to go up to the mountain. And I've looked over and I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land. So I'm happy tonight. I'm not worried about anything. I'm not fearing any man. Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord.
I believe our why and knowing our why and the power of it can be truly life transformational. It really can, not just for individuals, not just for organizations, but also for a total community. So why do we do what we do? Why do we do what we do, not just as a BSides community or a security community, but that's really what I want to focus on. We do it because there's a need. There's a need out there. And that's why you guys will get up in the morning, go through the rain, come spend time at BSides to educate and develop careers, because there is something in your heart that says there's a need out there that I believe I can fill. There's something I think I can do to help, to make a difference. And I hope that as you go about today learning, I pray that you will truly find someone to encourage as well, because you just never know. You never know what you may be able to do for somebody else's dream. Thank you very much, guys. I really appreciate it.